start the recording. Hi, Jess.
Hello.
So all the funding, they're now at least seeing small businesses as a needed demographic to support. But entrepreneurial ecosystem building, not so much, right? So,
right.
So I think now more than ever, focusing on ecosystem builders as like we're the glue, we're the mycelium, we're the thing that keeps things going or whatnot, and we can exponentially help support entrepreneurs, is a message that we really need to get out. So I really appreciate your framing of these questions for today's call. So so it's very timely, it's very needed, and yeah, we got to talk about ecosystem builders right now. So that's my little pitch, and we'll try to get it all out there. I think while we've been saying entrepreneurs first, in order to put entrepreneurs first, like right now, I think we've got to put ecosystem builders front and center.
Well, I don't think you'll get any argument from people on this call.
This is the audience. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think it's, we're doing some of the right things, telling the stories of ecosystem building. Unsung Heroes is doing that. It's telling the stories of ecosystem builders, and like I mentioned in the email to Victor and Kim yesterday, if we can be a part of that. Ecosystem builders are the venue by which we help that Right to Start campaign. And then we can talk about any other ideas here on this call.
Well, and so we should have it. And while we normally do a popcorn question, I think right now more than ever, it's really about how are you arriving today? So I will put it out there to you. Annika, how are you arriving today?
I just got up my daughter. She's playing in her room. We are in survival mode on a family level, trying to work, but by no means as bad as many others have it. We're not on house arrest. We're just hanging out with our little toddler. Here she is. And she's been on so many calls now that she insists of being in the screen for most of them. So it's pretty funny. So all things considered, we're doing great, and I'm grateful for where we are and how well we're doing. Beth, how are you arriving today?
I'm good. I am under pretty much house arrest. Our county executive put the order down yesterday, but my husband is essential, so he's going to work and coming home every day. So that's been interesting, but probably good for the marriage. Been busy with calls with you all and helping Julo strategy get some things rolling and such. So my mind has been preoccupied outside of the coronavirus for most of the day this week, at least so far.
So are you helping with your work, doing work for Julo as well, huh?
I am. And
is Tyler also still doing that?
He is. It's,
okay, cool.
Tyler and me and David Hirsch.
Oh, cool.
And trying to think of others that you might know. I think that's it.
Okay. Before we go any further and popcorn next, I will invite anybody else who wants to describe in addition to myself. You are more than welcome to help out.
Something I wanted to add, and this is maybe later in the conversation, but when it comes to storytelling, and I agree, I think we all agree, it's super important, especially now to get these stories out. But how does the engagement level decline, and what percentage of people compared to before when things were normal are actually looking at this stuff?
I can shed some light on that, actually. There's been a lot of concern about, I guess we're kind of segueing here from
popcorn. Sorry, how are you doing, Jeff?
Well, pretty good overall. Today is a little unmotivated to do much today, but this helps. But by the way, is everybody else, we'll popcorn to you just in just a second, but let's come back to that question about engagement, because I've got real-time stats on ED Hub due to the Unsung Heroes campaign. So it's good. So let's come back to that. But I think Jess and Megan's joined us, and Katie's joined us now. So everybody who's just joining us, with the popcorn question that Cecilia started with is, how are we arriving today? How are we doing? And so I think a few of us have gone. So I'm going to popcorn over to Jess Edwards now. Jess, how are you doing?
I knew you were going to do that because I just put a clementine in my mouth. But sorry, that's rude. Give me 1 sec. How about, can I popcorn to Katie till I'm done chewing so you all don't have to hear me chew? Katie, go ahead.
Likely excuse, Jess. So I'm actually doing better than expected, because I'm seeing people finding solutions and responding, and not just feeling totally helpless about what's going on. We've pretty much transitioned all of our events and classes to virtual, and some really creative things are coming out of that. For instance, one of our classes, part of the formula is for them to have a meal together before class. And they were one class into this 10-week course when all this came about. So what they've been doing is meeting via Zoom, but they're having a weekly social event, and they've arranged for food pickups the day of the class, and they're buying the food from previous program graduates who have food service businesses, or current cohort members that have food service businesses. And what's happening is people are, of course, the program is paying for one meal, but people are going and they're buying a meal for their whole family. So those businesses are getting that extra revenue. And so that was an unexpected side benefit. So I look at that and I'm saying, that's really cool. And one of our past graduates is doing yoga classes virtually, with only the yoga instructor at the facility. And so those types of things give me hope and encouragement.
Fantastic. And you get to choose, I think Megan or Jess and Eric has just joined us. So Katie, choose the next person to go. And you're muted. You're muted. Katie, you're muted, so we can't hear you.
Oh, that's right. So Jess, are you done with your clementine, or you want us to move on to somebody else?
Yeah, I'm ready. Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. Nice to chat. So as far as I'm going, this is actually my first day of working from home, because Southern Virginia has been quite lagged, unlike Northern Virginia that shut down the schools for the rest of the school year. Southern Virginia, I've been, fingers crossed, hoping that they'd catch up, but we're pretty lagged here with precautionary measures. But that being said, I'm safe and healthy, and, I've talked to a lot of my former colleagues in the co-working world, and some are being laid off, and it's really, I'm very fortunate right now. I'm safe and healthy, but I am praying and sending good vibes to all those that have currently been laid off, if not permanently. But so same kind of thing, there's virtual solutions for most of the work, but I would say for right now I'm okay, but I just joined a grant, an ecosystem development grant that is Rural Entrepreneurship Diversity Inclusion Grant, and 50% of the work is actually involving the schools. So doing entrepreneurial, business pitch competitions with the schools. And so that means, depending on how delayed the schools are getting back up and running, I might have to really pivot on, we discussed this yesterday, the actual deliverables. So my ask, or my need right now, is to be put in touch with anyone doing specifically entrepreneurial programming with K through 12 and even community colleges, to try to find solutions if for the rest of the year or going into the summer, it has to be online and virtual, and it can't be in person. So that's my one ask, if anyone can think of anyone working specifically on that work. But other than that, healthy and safe, and I hope everyone else is too. I would like to popcorn to Meg.
I'll take that as me. This is Megan, or is there a different?
Yes, that's you, Megan.
Yeah, Megan, sorry.
That's okay. So yeah, I'm arriving. I just had a really incredible one-on-one coaching session with Forward City's director of talent development, who that title doesn't even really sum up. She's just she's an incredible person. And so I feel much more grounded and anchored, and am really taking this time as an opportunity to kind of even up level my potential for how I create my day in a meaningful and flexible way, such that I'm really feeling the need for a lot of meditation right now, and actually had already planned to spend a majority of last week in silent meditation. And so just like thinking about how to do my work in a really meaningful and powerful way, this kind of idea of experimenting with even this evening, alternating between meditation and some writing that I need to do for an article about an ecosystem builder, Gabe, who's one of our ESHIP communities, ecosystem builders in Kansas City. And we have had in the pipeline for a while to have this article shared with Startland News. And so just needing to like reorient the focus of it to align and be meaningful and responsive to what's happening right now with the pandemic. And so yeah, it's just kind of a wild ride, but right now I feel really grounded and ready and inspired to be able to move into this work from a place of feeling like I have what I need, whereas before I think I've been feeling somewhat distracted. I decided to come and stay with my mom, who is about an hour and a half away from where I was living, and my aunt, who has dementia, lives 2 doors down. And so there's just a lot of things that we've been navigating in terms of really supporting her and trying to understand the importance of social distancing, but then just recognizing she forgets. So it can be stressful if I allow myself to dip into it, but I also am just enjoying the capacity to be really creative and flexible in this time of working completely distance-based, and also honoring social distancing practices. So really doing so much from home. So I'm hopeful and just feeling a bit more open, which is definitely a different experience than I've been having the last couple days. So I'm going to popcorn over to my fellow Forward Cityan, Eric, and I'm glad to be here today. Thanks for showing up, everybody.
Thanks, Megan. Appreciate it. How are we arriving, or how am I arriving today? Very much online. Just 1 Million Cups, saw a couple other cities, did our own this morning. There was a neat event that Proximity Space did with the folks from an organization called People and Company that do an excellent podcast called Get Together, also a great book. And just seeing how different groups are using the online tools to be more effective and bring folks together. So I'm motivated about that. And I don't know, kind of maybe keeping blinders on about some of the other stuff for the moment. Thanks. I think that was everyone. Is that correct?
I don't know if Cecilia went. Did you go, Cecilia?
No, I'm happy to share.
Go, Cecilia.
Thank you. I am arriving today. I think I was telling somebody earlier. I feel like I'm balancing, the step forward, do something, step back, and let things happen. And so I think professionally and personally, just trying to find that balance and finding my rhythm. So I'm inspired by all the things that are going on. I'm frustrated at all the things that are going on. And so it really is a lot of balance and finding, what's working and keep plugging away at that. I also thought that I was going to take some time and focus on learning and maybe delving into a course or doing more reading. I've got this 600-page document that I'm supposed to read, and I'm not. I need to check out and binge watch Netflix. And Eric, Teach Rock is super cool. It comes from the Rock and Roll Forever Foundation. If you have anybody in your life who's K through 12, there's lots of amazing content that's available, and all of the musicians have freely given their rights to the music, and it's curated by educators. So it's an amazing tool, and thanks Steve Van Zandt for starting that initiative alongside of Martin Scorsese, Bruce Springsteen, and Bono. So you can see where that came from. Tyler, nice to see you. The question that we're popcorning is, how are you arriving today?
I'm on my 7th Zoom call of the day. And I thought I would pop in and see some faces. So sorry I've been offline, folks, but it's nice to see everyone. I hope everyone's holding up. Yeah, no, I'm good. Why complain?
I like it. All right, so I think we've done the popcorn for everybody. So I think let's get back to updates. I missed that one a little long, but I think everybody needs that, so I think that's fine. So if everybody's got the agenda open, I put it in the chat. So the main topic is going to be about how can we tell positive stories about what's going on, what ecosystem builders are doing amidst COVID-19. But before we do that, Jess asked the question earlier this call, how, I'm going to share my screen if I can. And let's see, share. So you guys see my screen? So you see a Google Analytics there, and what you're seeing there is Ecosystem Builder Hub, and that's monthly sessions. And so you can see, however, in January there were 673, and that was before the EB Unsung Heroes campaign kicked off really in full. In February, that was going strong, starting to go strong. We had just under 1,000. And I don't know if you can see, so far in March, we're at 1,215. So we hit something like, let's see if I can go to yesterday's view. So we hit like almost 200 sessions just the other day. And I'm going to stop sharing because this is pegging my processor. So the answer to the question is, when we share stories like the Unsung Heroes campaign, people are engaging. People are really engaging, especially with I think the stories of the individual ecosystem builders. So in this round, we're celebrating Goal 2 collaboration, and I think Melanie Lency and is it Harshita Annika? Is that her name? Those have just gotten tons of views, and so it's really kind of seems to be resonating and engaging with fellow ecosystem builders to see the stories of their peers. So I think, Jess, that is the answer. This is resonating, and people do want to read some positive, good news, which is why I had the idea to let's share more stories that are positive. So that is that. Cecilia, did you want to talk a little bit about, you and I were chatting earlier today about now is the time to promote ecosystem builders. Do you want to say anything more about that while everybody's here?
Sure. Right now, what we've always centered on is entrepreneurs first, right? And how ecosystem builders support entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is economic development. I mean, you all know this. This is the language that we talk about. And more, the realization is, while entrepreneurs and small businesses we're helping to shed some light their way, and they're thankfully getting some much needed support. Right now, entrepreneur ecosystem builders and entrepreneur support organizations are really at risk. And because we've been very much behind the scenes, there is no light shedding our way unless we put it there. So that so some of the organizations that we belong to or know are at risk right now. So Victor Huang had a session the other day about this right to start movement, and talking about the fact that that America has a right to start, and everybody in it does. It's a wonderful session, and it should be shared on Startup Champions Network soon, so we'll share it as well. But the idea, I think that you know, the conversation Jeff started with them is also the fact that we are the ones to really move that forward, right? So if we don't talk about ecosystem builders, like, now is the time, more than ever. Ecosystem builders, in order for us to be sustainable, in order for the work to move forward exponentially, because I think what we're going to see right now is small business and entrepreneurship will take a dive, and then it will surge. And as it surges, without some support and the structures that we've put in place, then the chances are it'll be, I mean, we're the scaffolding. So so did I cover what I
think
started
so,
to say
and I
before?
think that'll dovetail into the main topic. But before we do that, I just wanted to get an update from Annika, and maybe perhaps just to, as far as the Unsung Heroes campaign. We've just published the second goal, and that set of people. Thoughts from you guys as far as how that's going, and plans for the next one to goal 3.
Yeah. According to website traffic, it's going well. I received some feedback. I received a lot with the first wave from the heroes that were nominated, not so much from this group, but this is 2 weeks, so we are 3 days in, and then not this coming Monday, March 30th, but the one after, we're gonna open up the next goal, so to speak. Or at least it's always 2-week chunks where we focus on one goal and related champions. We have, heroes. We have really good density up until goal 5, 6, 7, not so much. So Beth, I'm going to come back to you. So if you can think of anyone who's an unsung hero working on goal 6 and goal 7, which is universal support and sustainable work, that you would nominate, that would be great, just so we can share a little bit more. I've been trying to get content from the working groups, which has not worked. And I think
nominate Beth Zimmer for goal 6.
Oh, she's already nominated. Beth is nominated for everything. It's fantastic. That's why I've been pushing her. And yeah, to be honest, I just want to plant this idea early, whether ESHIP takes place or not. But we certainly, within our smaller working group, have been talking about what could this look like going forward. Just given that we're getting such great response, and I feel that this campaign is doing some good in the field right now, especially with what Cecilia was saying about shedding the light on the work of ecosystem builders. It's exactly what we're trying to do. And in a world post-COVID, I definitely see need to continue to do that, whatever that looks like. So
so let me say something about ESHIP, because I know that's on a lot of people's minds. The planning committee is still planning. We don't know whether or not it will take place on the dates that were originally scheduled, or it would be postponed, or it will go virtually. So there hasn't been a definitive decision, but we know that we have to keep planning for it as if it's going to happen, so that we will be prepared for whatever. But obviously the foundation is thinking very much about people's safety and also the need and all of those things. So it is top of mind, but that's the only update that I have on ESHIP, because originally the registrations would have gone out already, or would have gone out to all of you who have been there before. But so hang tight, and as soon as I know, I will share information.
Is that the same for, I don't know if you would know, for Rural Rise as well? Is that kind of the same? They're still planning, or?
I don't know, because I'm not
Okay.
involved in that, but yeah, so reach out to Tina. I know, I would say if you can, don't reach out to Joe, not because he doesn't know, but because he's got a lot of personal things going on. He's caring for some people, and so I want to give him the space and the grace to attend to personal things. So if you can focus on reaching out to Tina instead, that
Sure.
would be much helpful.
Sure, thanks. Jeff, I just want to say one more thing about the Unsung Project, and it's more just, so this month, I know that our original intent with the Unsung Heroes, right, is to share among the peers and make sure that people that are quietly or humbly working to contribute get some recognition, and people can learn about their projects and their work. But a nice side effect that, or a ripple effect that wasn't expected is the 5 unsung nominees this month. As I've been tracking them, sharing and getting 60 likes and shares in their hyper local communities, that is actually kind of, priority 1 is the peer info sharing, but I would say a very close second priority, or what's been happening, is ecosystem building, as it's a new thing, is getting more and more attention in these super hyper local communities by everybody being excited about one of their own getting championed. Because I shared the one I'm in the Buffalo Startup Slack community, and that made a lot of rounds too, because she's so active at University of Buffalo. But anyways, I just wanted to share that too. It's a positive and exciting secondary messaging or storytelling outcome, which has been really neat to see, and I think just helps us all in general. But yeah, not hard data, but just a nice story. Okay, I'm done.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. It's just that's pretty cool. So I think almost top bottom of the hour. So for the next let's say 20 minutes, let's just chat about how we can tell positive stories about ecosystems and communities doing good amidst this COVID-19 crisis. This idea came about, and I pinged it to Annika. If we could collect stories from fellow ecosystem builders about just to share, what someone, say what Rick Tarosi is doing in Portland to scrounge up cheat sheets and whatnot for people to buy gift cards from small businesses. That's an example. Or how maker movements are coming together in local cities to 3D print and make the masks, not the masks, but the shields. Stories like that. So I thought the first step would be just kind of get your ideas on this call from people to see if that resonates and get some ideas on it, number 1. And then number 2, if you guys actually have stories of some community or some ecosystem builder who's just making a positive impact in a community or in society amidst this COVID-19 crisis. And I'll open it up for comments from that.
I'm so excited about this, Jeff. When you emailed, I had already a short list, as I emailed you, of people who I want to talk about and talk to. So yes, Rick Tarosi, Larkin, I think this is relevant for everybody in co-working. Larkin launched a virtual community for co-working spaces to bring their community together with events, resources, office hours, whatnot, to cater to everybody who's normally in a co-working space, remote workers, freelancers, creatives, so on and so forth. So there's a lot happening there. And Jeff, since you and I talked, I'm hosting a session probably on Monday. Next week is the Skoll World Forum for Social Entrepreneurship. And because it was canceled, they're running all the sessions online. And I have a bunch of social ventures who I interviewed previously, and we're getting together to talk about this idea of ecosystem builders as second responders, and how we can support our entrepreneurial ecosystems in this current time. We have one person from Latin America, Rick from North America, one in Africa, and probably one in Pakistan. So we're going to have global perspectives on how ecosystem builders are trying to support their communities. So all by way of saying, someone reached out to me to say, hey, shall we host this session? So I'm hearing it from different sides. So I think A, it'll resonate, and B, we need good stories now more than ever. I think there's a lot of fatigue around hysteria and just bad news. So even, and I like what you said when you and I talked, just in terms of, let's start simple, but let's start as soon as possible. And even if it's just small snippets, you never know what they're going to spark and what bigger players can say.
Right. Yeah, I've basically started collecting a document where I'm just collecting what I come across.
Great.
I had another thought and it just escaped me. Anybody else?
Can I chime in? Eric and I had a very short conversation. I think it was Slack or a couple of Facebook messages or whatnot, talking about Ecosystems Unite and it started off as a repository to collect a lot of information, because we knew that we needed some kind of hub and spoke model where we could collect best practices and what's going on and all of that. We're seeing that need, while it's still there, it's not as urgent. And what to do with that site next, it's actually a really great place to maybe collect some of those stories and ask some
that's the Facebook page, right?
Yeah, that's the Facebook page.
And that's where I collected most of them from.
No, well, I'm glad it's been helpful otherwise, but I think that's what it's not just our ecosystem building community, right? Because sometimes what happens is we talk in this echo chamber of our community, and then we reach out a little bit wider each time, but that's got a lot of community builders in there, some economic development people. I just put in somebody I know from the State Department is in it now. And so it's really actually far reaching. I mean, when we decided that what we needed was an agnostic space that and fairly open, that's what's been going on. So I don't know if it's a desire to maybe seed some questions or shift and focus. So Eric, I wanted you to share what you were thinking about that too.
I probably haven't thought as deeply. Yeah, I think it does feel like it's a good funnel. It's a good place to kind of do some outreach and ask maybe some more specific questions. I think, what I've heard and seen in a variety of online groups is kind of that signal to noise sort of problem. And we haven't looked at over there, but how to get and keep the topic for folks who really want to kind of constrain the topic, the range of topics. How to get that and enforce that is an ongoing challenge, I'll put it that way. But yeah, I love the idea of sourcing that. And I missed part of the beginning of this, but I've got like my own little blog post thing going that I'm looking at Rick's stuff too. There's a handful of things there. But I think this is a nice opportunity to highlight those that are doing this really great sort of collaborative work. So I like the direction this is going.
So this is Megan. Just to share, we were scheduled to start with an article with Startland News in Kansas City, introducing Gabe Munoz and the ecosystem building work that he's been doing there, as well as kind of how he found his way to ESHIP Communities program in Kansas City and to become the local director. And so what I'm noticing is like also thinking about sharing how his perspective and the work that he's done in the community and the work that's been done in the community positions him and the rest of the community to show up powerfully. So I'm going to be exploring that a little bit. So not just thinking about what are the immediate response pieces, but what are some of the longer term strategy pieces that have been in place and how that creates, like I think sometimes when we end up in a situation like this, we can lose sight of the fact of all the work that we've done that's positioned us to be able to respond so well. So I'm hoping to highlight elements of that in that storytelling piece. And then just as like an example of people doing interesting things, I noticed sort of very early on when South by Southwest was canceled, a friend of mine based in LA who had a business that was largely dependent on South by Southwest for a while, started creating an Excel spreadsheet as an immediate way to like track the businesses that were going to be impacted by that and what their specific needs were, which is, I thought, just a really good kind of nitty gritty, like very simple, basic starting point to start to support entrepreneurs and small business folks. So just sort of throwing that in there. And that's my story.
Thanks for sharing. Anybody else have examples or seen examples of anybody? Like, let's start in your community. Some ecosystem builders who were doing great things. It's just, I'll start with, here in Sacramento, we've got a makerspace who's also doing one of those, making those personal protection shields. And a bunch of makers have come together to do that. So I think we're going to see that happening in a lot of communities. I think that's a positive example. I know several ecosystem builders out there, including myself, have put together resource sheets for local entrepreneurs. So I think that's another example of how ecosystem builders have created value for the entrepreneurs in this crisis. Anybody else?
I did want to throw in that the German government collaborated with Impact Hub Berlin and the German Social Entrepreneurship Network to host the largest ever hackathon.
I saw that.
Us versus Hack. 43,000 participants over 48 hours on the weekend. They have 1,500 teams with solutions, hardware and software, how to approach the virus. So it goes beyond just startups and business, but it's really in all sorts of ways. And they're hosting a webinar tomorrow at 4 p.m. Central European Time, which is 11 a.m. Eastern Time, to share how they did it, because I want to invite other countries and communities to also host these hackathons. Jeff, I'm waiting to talk. I already spoke to a number of those people, but they're heads down working on it right now. But I think that would be really interesting. So I'm hoping to.
Yeah, and if they have a video of that you could share wherever, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
If they record that webinar.
Yeah. Something to piggyback on that is I've been really trying to follow. So similar to the hackathons, anything that's an open call for startups, whether they're healthcare related, I've been trying to follow and share so that startups are aware that there's funding and, also trying to find a solution. So one is out of DC that I shared recently, I can share in the group, but it's an open call again to healthcare startups. So I've just been trying to, I think as an ecosystem builder, our main job is to be a conduit, right? And connect information and people and resources. So I've been really trying to do Google alerts and find if there's, like the hackathons, funding or any kind of open calls or competitions to share with startups that could actually help find a solution.
Good, thanks.
So let me be clear. What we're looking for now are stories about how people are responding to the current situation. Is that correct?
Yeah, basically, and I would kind of try to focus it on how ecosystem builders or community builders, developers are rising up to the challenge and really helping their communities. So I kind of, I'm all about trying to tell the stories of ecosystem builders on ecosystem building. So I know ecosystem builders are having an impact, but I want to hear stories about that that we can share and show how ecosystem builders specifically are doing positive things in their communities.
And so I'm kind of getting caught in the terminology,
Mm-hmm.
kind of anal when it comes to this. Maybe somebody can draw me a picture. But it seems like anybody who's doing anything good now, we're now calling them ecosystem.
Yeah, well, so that's it.
I hate to dilute. I'm worried about the terminology being thrown around so much that we're diluting its meaning. I mean, think about how diluted innovation is now. Think about how diluted diversity is now, because we use it for everything. So are all these people ecosystem builders? They just
everybody's going to have a different definition of that, and I'll throw out mine. It's somebody who spends the time primarily focused on connecting the entrepreneurs in their community. So it's an entrepreneurial support, somebody who works for an entrepreneurial support organization, perhaps. But it's somebody who's taking a systemic view to connect the community and support entrepreneurs. So it can be an entrepreneur, but it's a person who primarily focuses their energy on supporting other entrepreneurs in the community. I don't know if that helps or not.
Kind of, you know, those people have been out there forever doing things, and some of the time, how they're supporting those entrepreneurs is very fiefdom oriented and very narrow,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
which means they're doing their jobs, but I would not call them an ecosystem builder. And so I worry, and I understand that we want to get the stories out, but I'm concerned that we're not being specific enough about who we're looking for. You know, if we want to, as ecosystem builders, promote the good work that's being done by people, I just worry that we're calling everybody who's doing anything an ecosystem builder, as opposed to, I think maybe I'm getting this all wrong, but it seems to me that when we look at the people in this meeting, that it is people with a certain mindset and an approach to the work that is a little bit broader, that is at the same time very broad and very narrow in the way that we're looking at building things, where somebody who works for any government agency or any nonprofit who's doing something to help, doing something to help entrepreneurs because that's their job, I'm not sure I'd call them an ecosystem builder.
That's fair, and I think there's a lot of people who I think would agree with you. So for the purpose of this call, you know, I'd say limit it to the definition you just said, the people like that are on this call, and so there's
right. So people who would be doing this work, even if it was not their job to do it, doing this work because it is a calling, it is a mission, you know, it is a passion, it's a purpose. And you don't turn that off at 5 o'clock when your job is over and you go home. And I think this is probably what we're struggling with in some of the other groups as we try to talk about sustainable work, is what is an ecosystem builder? And shouldn't we be really specific and selective in how we put that label?
I think that's like, goal 3.
Yeah, I feel like some of that, you know, I don't necessarily want to discount people in certain roles because it's their job and they get paid for it. I think
right.
It's the mindset that you come with, or the heart that you come with, right?
I agree with you. I don't want them people to inherit the ecosystem builder role just because they have this job. Because I work with a lot of people who have a job, and I would not call them an ecosystem builder because
we call those ecosystem
I want
builders,
to collaborate,
right?
Or we want to do something that's not, you know, strictly defined by their job, or it takes a little bit of extra effort. They don't want to do it, but their job says that they help entrepreneurs, but they're definitely not an ecosystem builder. Then there are other people whose title and job doesn't say anything specifically about entrepreneurs, but yet the way that they operate and think, that makes them an ecosystem builder.
That's the blog post that I've been threatening to write, Jeff, right? So every time I get frustrated by an ecosystem builder or a community czar, I keep saying, oh, I'm going to write that thing that's going to...
Right, because they're not an ecosystem builder. And so I think it's like I think this is a badge that you wear, but you don't inherit it because of your job title. And you don't get labeled that just because you're making masks for somebody, you know, for first responders and for medical. I just, you know, I'm hearing us using that phrase, all the time, and I said, wait a minute, I'm not sure that's what we want to do.
I would agree that it's definitely more a mindset than a title. If this is a safe space, I'd like to, there was something I was going to email the ESHIP email after the survey from last ESHIP Summit, which was, I attended the first one. I was out of the country for the second, then I attended this last one. And the big difference between the first one that was kind of invite only and very specific to ecosystem builders to this last one, one downside to merging the mayor's conference with the ESHIP conference was the day that we all were in working groups, it was very apparent, the folks that came from the mayor's group, if you had someone from that, a lot of them owned the conversation, and it was really interesting because they weren't used, it just was a different mindset, right? They're used to leading the meeting, talking about their ideas. And so I walked away from the working group and a couple other people said, man, I had someone from the mayor's conference in my group and we didn't get anything done. And so that was something I wanted to email to say, you know what, I totally get why it has to be inclusive because an ecosystem is by definition very diverse backgrounds and industries, but there needs to be a orientation for anyone that is not naturally coming from a collaborative mindset as an ecosystem builder. So if you are going to merge all these other groups, they just need an orientation to say, listen, this is how it works. You know, it's not that you lead or anything. So I do agree with that I think it's more a mindset because I could pick out who was from the mayor's conference before anyone even introduced themselves based on how they were engaging in the group work, if that makes sense. Safe space.
Will you please do email that so that I can share it? Because if you don't, then it's like my voice or you know, whatever I translate. So I would really appreciate, and if you want me to just cut and paste the body of it and leave your name out of it, I'm happy to do that as well. You just let me know, but I would really love to have that information so that I can share that.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure we answered that question. Katie's question. I think it's a valid question. It's one that comes up a lot. I know it's one that's come up on other calls.
It may not be a crisp answer, Jeff. I just want us to be really deliberate in how we use these phrases that mean so much to us that we don't end up sprinkling them around and diluting the power impact of them.
I would agree though with Katie's point though that it is more mindset than maybe title, and it's a calling versus a career. So I think that's kind of where we're going, but yeah, it's not a easy black and white hard line, but it is a mindset and yeah, an approach.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do, I wrote an article, I don't know, when was this? Back in January 2019, where I kind of tried to cull the different responses as far as what an ecosystem builder is.
Is that about our convening?
No, it's actually a different one, but I'm going to paste into the chat here something that everybody here probably knows, Chris Kane, who's now in Ithaca. But this was, I think, a quote from her in that. I think the distinction would be to community mover and shaker versus an ecosystem builder is there's a part of your soul in it. And I think that's I love that description of it. It's kind of, you know, you do it because of the passion for it, not for a paycheck, which I think is kind of the essence of what you're saying, Katie. You know, I'll paste the link to the article in there too.
I just need to keep my thing unmuted all the time. I think another big difference is a mover and shaker can break a lot of glass in their meeting, where an ecosystem builder, because of their approach, does not break glass.
That's good. I like that. So we are at 10 till the hour, and so that we can finish up on time. I just want to finish this part of the thing saying, if anybody does come across positive stories, and really ultimately this is what I was going at, is I want to share positive stories. Because I listened to, if anybody hasn't listened to the podcast, the Keystone podcast episode that Yuval did with Brad Feld, dropped last week. It's a great podcast, and Brad Feld talks a little bit about the negative contagion of the coronavirus and how we're going to see a phase shift when people start telling positive stories. And so I think we as ecosystem builders in this community can help do that. So if anybody has any stories, feel free to email me at jeff@startupstack.org, and I will put that in the chat here.
Jeff,
And
did
I
you
will
create
continue
the survey?
I have not yet.
I think that'll be good.
I wanted
Yes.
to I just wanted to kind of get people's thoughts here first, and so I will create that next and probably do a blog post on EB Hub and share via social and whatnot, and look for people to help spread that.
Okay.
But until then, just if you see anything, just drop it my way.
That sounds great. I think I will sit down in the next day or so and write that other, that other piece about ecosystem building. I titled it Ecosystem Building. I don't think it means what you think it means. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Can I jump back in? I've been doing some work over the last few days and just went back to the playbook. And I don't know why that didn't occur to me earlier, but the most recent one is so good. And it talks so much about, again, what is an ecosystem builder? And it just comes down to the mindset and the right attitude. I think that's what Chris was trying to say, is it's got your heart in it because you're doing it for the right reasons. So y'all, if you just want to pop back in here and dig out your old playbooks,
Was that the one
so
given out
fantastic.
at the conference last year that I didn't
Yes. Yes.
But it's
and
online.
it's online too.
It's online.
It is online?
And I'll get you one, Katie. Just I have your address somewhere, right? Just email me your address and I'll just make sure you get it.
Thank you.
I will drop in the link to the latest playbook online version.
That's wonderful. I will treasure it and guard it with my life.
So there, until you get that, the link to the online version is now in the chat.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Jeff, you always have everything right at your fingertips. 18 screens open.
Anyway, so thanks for all that input and feedback, guys. Cecilia, where are we at? So this is the closing Q&A, and I think what you are wanting is key takeaways and call to action. So what is everybody's takeaway from this call on something, maybe a resource that you were previously unaware of, or call to action that you plan to take to heart and engage in after this call?
I think my key takeaway is I've got lots of stories. I just need to take some time, get out of crisis response mode and start writing some of those stories.
Cool.
I will, following my panel on hopefully Monday, I will have at least one blog post highlighting some of those global perspectives of how ecosystem builders in different continents are responding, which, obviously is just a snapshot, but I think will be really interesting.
This is Megan. I'm sort of in a deep listening stage right now, and I just want to, my takeaway is that I really appreciate Katie for modeling truth speaking and really responding to that concern and making sure that that we're being really thoughtful in all of this. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Eric here, getting off my butt on a couple stories, but also I can't wait for you all to learn a little bit more about Gabe and what he's doing in community out there in Kansas City. Just one of my favorite people. So I'm glad. I think and also looking for ways where we can connect more of the great people who are doing this work. So, and thankful to you all for the work that's happening with highlighting the stories of ecosystem builders. So just big thanks.
And maybe I think Megan, Eric, when that story from Gabe drops on Forward Cities, I don't know that I always catch it very quickly. So ping me, and happy to share via EB Hub and its social channels. And I know others on here would love to share it on their social channels as well.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? For me, I'm going to, I guess I'll create a survey and a blog post about this positive storytelling thing. And if anybody has an idea for a hashtag on that, let me know.
Tyler and I are very fond of the term second responders, but I don't think it's self-explanatory enough, but I love the term. So maybe we'll make it one.
Let me think on that. Second responder.
And I'm not applauding myself. I can't take credit. My co-host came up with that term, but I thought it was genius. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody? Tyler, go.
It made me, well, first off, you guys are doing awesome stuff. I was just jumping in to see. I've been thoroughly impressed with how well storytelling has integrated and surpassed with all the other goals since I've been gone and off the team. So great work. And I'm definitely going to call through. I'm going to call 10 or 15 contacts here in Florida. Need to anyway. It's been on my short list of stuff to do. So I'm going to call in and check in with them, but I'm going to add in the perspective from, what are you guys working on? What can we talk about, et cetera. And, hopefully, Jeff, I'll have maybe one or two to recommend for you on Friday for the
cool.
EB. So, but you guys keep doing
Tyler,
it.
You're always on the team. You're just in a different part of the team. So, but you're always
on other stuff right now. Top secret probation.
Absolutely. The second responder thing, I think that speaks to what did my son call it? A flarful? That it's the term that self-explains it, whatever. Anyway, there's a post about that somewhere on Slack. But so my takeaway is that, or my call to action is that I will write that piece about the heart of ecosystem building and the mindset. So taking a lot of good examples from all of you and probably incorporating some of your work and tagging you in it so that we can amplify. And then I'm continually inspired by all of you. Stories are what change hearts and minds, and you are the best people at all of this. I cannot imagine doing the work without you. So I'm so glad that we're in this together. So thank you for your energy and your leadership and all the right words that you put together.
Okay, if nobody else wants to jump in, I will say, Cecilia, you've got an idea for something tomorrow. Did you want to tell people about that who may not know about it?
So all of you are invited to a virtual happy hour. We're going to have a virtual happy hour at 5 p.m. Central Time, so 6 p.m. Eastern, and then do the math as you go across
Which means we start drinking really early here on the West Coast.
Do. Now, it's a beverage of your choice, Jeff, so you decide, follow your energy. The idea of a virtual happy hour is, look, as Katie said, we're in crisis mode, and some of us are just spinning so fast, and it's and I know that this is a great reprieve for me to be able to get on a call with all of you and drop by for a minute, drop by for an hour, and just check in and be around people but we don't have to solve for anything, right? We just want to just take a breath and be a community together because that's important. So that's a big part of self-care as well. So, the link is on the ESHIP Facebook page, and I will put it on the Slack channel as well.
Is that in the general channel?
It's in the ESHIP Facebook page, yeah. And then I'll post it in the general Slack channel.
Okay, cool.
So, yes.
All right, Cecilia, that is all I've got. You want to send us off with anything?
No, just keep putting all the words in the right order and
All right.
sharing them out. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.